Thank you. Simchas Bayu.
This is Akiva.
Akiva. So Akiva has a boy. So whoever's in town for Shabbos, there's a Shalom Zachar on Friday night, and the bris next Tuesday morning. So we're going to talk about different things. We have roughly 45, 50 minutes. I can give you a little bit of a choice. We can give some advice on just a couple of topics. I'm going to say something on the Parshat regardless. We could talk about the importance of going to yeshiva, of community yeshiva. We can talk about, which we will probably, the post-October 7th, kind of the atmosphere that the environment does change. The atmospheric conditions have changed. We can talk about some marriage advice. Any subject in particular grabs you guys? Marriage?
Any of them. Let's do
any of them.
Keeping family Jewish.
Sorry?
Keeping your family Jewish.
Keeping your family Jewish. Okay. Let's talk a little bit general advice on marriage. I'm asked not fairly often. I learn in yeshiva in the afternoon in Brooklyn, and guys your age from religious homes, and I'm a little bit the go-to guy on some advice for marriage. I ask a question. First question I'll ask the fellow is, do you always find it easy to live with yourself? So I get this kind of a look. Do you always find it easy to live with yourself? Do you ever misplace things? Do you ever forget to do things? Do you ever not forget to do things and anyway don't do things? Yes. Do you mess up? I'm being taped, so we have to use very, very clean language. Yes, you mess up at times. So why is it that you expect to find a girl that's perfect? If you're far from perfect, why do you expect to find a girl that's perfect? Because a lot of us have a view of marriage that this girl, woman, female that I'm going to find is going to complement me, and she's going to just, wherever I'm lacking, whatever I need, she's going to fill that void, and life's going to be much, much easier. In other words, we're all thinking it's all about me. But if you're going to admit that we can't really live with ourselves so easily, but we're not so hard on ourselves. Maybe sometimes we should be harder on ourselves, actually, when we mess up. But we've learned to live with ourselves, with all of our faults, with our shortcomings, with our inadequacies, but we're determined to grow. So really, you should look at the spouse you're looking for really the same way. Now, obviously, we're not saying, of course, you have to be attracted to her. You have to like her. If there's what I call a positive negative, there's a negative that leaps out at you, then it's obviously not for you. But if everything seems okay, and you ask yourself really one very important question, which is really the purpose of marriage. Is this the woman, the girl, you're looking now as a girl more than as a woman, but she's a woman. Is this the woman I want to be the mother of my children? Is this the person I want who's going to be bringing up my children? It's a very important question. Ultimately, I think it's a kivatats that gives, we need to have children, but why? It's a big obligation, tremendous responsibility. Hashem wants us to have children, so, He made getting children sweet, and He put jelly on the bread. Because the only way to eat the bread, you want your child to eat it. You need to eat it. So you put jelly on it, then you eat the bread. If someone licked off the jelly and didn't eat the bread, that would really be defeating the whole purpose. And without getting too descriptive, we're being taped. When you lick off the jelly and you don't eat the bread, because you're thinking that's the ultimate pleasure. I'm going to just have the jelly. I won't eat the bread. But true satisfaction only comes when you eat the bread as well. You don't become satisfied from jelly alone. From jelly alone, you'll just want more jelly. If you eat the bread, which was the purpose of the jelly, you're actually going to experience satisfaction. So keep these things in mind, is that when we look for a mate, a soulmate, a partner, someone, Rabbi Gottlieb mentioned, I was talking to him on Shabbos, on the way to Jonathan Lewin's Kiddush. He had a Kiddush for a granddaughter. And I said, in the novels, in romance novels, it seemingly ends that the two are going to live the rest of their life in eternal bliss, locked in each other's arms, only thinking about each other 24/7. Which we know is not true. We each have roles, we each have obligations, we have careers. An Orthodox, a Torah observant person, he's going to shul, he's learning Torah. You're not locked in each other's arms 24/7 in eternal bliss. He said, while that is true that we don't, but you could be cognizant of it. Be cognizant of it. And I'd like to give an example which will answer two different questions. I was asked a question, talk about Shabbos a little bit. I was asked a question by one of the meals on Shabbos. Let's say I violate the Shabbos accidentally. I turn on the light by accident. What's the punishment? So in the time that we had the temple, and it should be rebuilt soon, we brought a sacrifice. It was called a korban chatas. Now we don't have a korban chatas. So the Talmud says, even just to read the verses in Torah that talk about that sacrifice, with in mind that it's if I brought it, so saying it is tantamount to some degree of bringing it. But really, I think what we're obligated to do is to bring Shabbos to a level, and this I'm going to tie it into really how a spouse should look at each other. If, let's say, I dropped my phone today once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, I kept dropping my phone, and I know it's going to break. Automatically, I'm going to start being more aware of my phone, and I'm going to stop dropping it. Not because, well, okay, what am I going to do today? My goal for today is that my phone shouldn't fall on the floor. No. I'm going to continue all my daily activities. I'm going to be focused on everything else as I was heretofore. But I'm going to raise the conscious level of the phone. I'm going to realize that it's there. We have to strive that Shabbos is there. Shabbos, there has to be a higher level in our consciousness that Shabbos exists. And that's your relationship between a husband and a wife. To be aware, you're a changed person. You want to be a different person because you're married. You want to go through life differently. Whatever you do, your goals, how you do things, how you perform. Do we gamble as much? Before I was married, you went hiking. Yeah, you jumped over these deep chasms. You did things that they weren't inherently dangerous. Somehow you stopped doing them once you're married. Not because it's part of the agreement. You didn't sign anything. It's just there's a conscious level that someone else needs me. I have responsibility. And that stays with you. And when you become a parent, it becomes even more. As your family grows, even more. So that's something I think it's important to take with you. It's in your direction in life. I'm going to stop for a second because I want to welcome a dear old mentee, and I'd like to introduce Yigal. Yigal just entered the room. Yigal spent quite a bit of time in Gaza, and he's probably going back in. He's helping protect us, and he's someone that I'm super proud of, and we should all be super proud. We just give him just a big applause. Yigal. I feel safer already. So let's start with the parsha, because officially it's supposed to be a shir on the parsha. This week's Torah reading is chukas. Now, there are 3 types of commandments. Of the 613 commandments, there are positive commandments, there are prohibitions. It's divided into the 613, 248 positive commandments, 365 prohibitions. But they can be broken down further. There are certain commandments which, if we were all together in a room and we decided to create a society, and a society has to have laws. It can't be a free-for-all. So all the laws that we would come up with logically, those are mishpatim, those are judgments, that for society to work, you can't steal, you can't kill, you can't violate other people's rights. Those are all, they make sense. There are other commandments that are testimonial in nature, commemorating holidays, the origins of the nation that you're creating, the heritage, traditions of each different people. So we have those as well. We have the holidays. Then there's a category of commandments that seemingly make no sense. The most famous of all of them is the beginning of this week's Torah reading, and it's the para aduma, the red heifer, that you find a perfectly red cow that doesn't have any black hair whatsoever. When I was in Israel, Hanukkah time, I was near Shiloh, and actually they found three totally red heifers. I have a video of it, I can show it to you later. I forgot the names, but I think I have it on the video. And it's a very, very complicated subject in the Torah. It's something that's brought that if somebody became spiritually unclean because he became in contact with a dead person, and the preparation is very intricate, and those that are involved in preparing this that's going to purify those that are spiritually unclean, they become unclean just by going through the process of preparing the animal. It's on a simple level, it's nonsensical. It's the quintessential, what we call chok. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. Interestingly though, a lot of the commentaries, they give reasons for it. And one of the reasons is, why do we take this parah, why do we take this calf? To atone for the golden calf that the Jews in the desert, that we created this golden calf, and the Jews bowed down to it, and there was a tremendous stain on our national soul. And it was such a severe stain that it either required total annihilation of the Jewish people, but there was no punishment that could be done then that would be a substitute for annihilation. And Moses prayed, and God accepts his prayers on our behalf. But God says, I'm going to continue whenever there's going to be a punishment throughout history, including present times, there's going to be a little bit of the punishment of the golden calf. So October 7th had a little bit of the punishment of the golden calf, because it's being paid out in installments. Because if it was due, if God would have said, look, it's due now, we would not have survived. So if this is the quintessential chok, which means a statute without any logic to it, why are commentaries given a reason to it? So I heard a beautiful explanation which I'd like to share with you, and I think that's something that you can incorporate into your lives. The house I was brought up in, my father was much, much older than me. He got married, he was 40 years old. I'm the youngest of 5 children. My father was born in 1898. Yeah, so seriously long time ago. And that defined the relationship I had with him. Was obviously, there was the great divide. My father didn't play with me. He didn't take me to ball games. He was a man of great stature. He actually was very dedicated, besides being a very hardworking businessman. But he involved himself in the early years in New York in creating Torah institutions, because somehow he realized, even though he himself really did not attend yeshiva, but he realized the importance of a Torah education. It was very important to him. Shabas is very special in my house. And I'm talking pre-air conditioning. When I was a child, there was no air conditioning yet. But my father, even in the summer months, and we had long Shabbos meals, he sat at the table with his jacket on. And as soon as we really got old enough, I'm talking 10, 11, 12, it was kind of understood. I watched my older brothers. It was almost like nobody had to tell me to do it. You wore your jacket. Now, the majority of people, and you'll go to very homes of Rabbanim and Rabbeim, and right after Kiddush, they can take off their jackets and the ties. There's nothing wrong with eating the Shabbos meal without your jacket and tie. There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing wrong. But you'll admit that if you're dressed formally, there is something, it does something to you. So to try to explain what it does doesn't really work. There are certain things in life that when you live it, when you practice it, you will find the meaning through the practice. To explain it from the outside in doesn't work. But when you experience something, then you get a feeling for it. So the red heifer, to explain it, doesn't work. But once you do it, you prepare it, and you go through the process, you go through the purification process of it, then you understand it. And there are a lot of things in life that have that character to it. But when you live it, so while you're hearing here, you're listening to rabbis, they're telling you, they're trying to describe what yeshiva life is like. It's really difficult to explain. It's difficult to explain when you have, if someone has never practiced yoga, and he was talking to someone that does practice yoga, you can't really explain it. But to deny that the one that's practicing yoga is experiencing the advantages and the benefits of yoga, if you've never practiced yoga, you can't argue with the person. So you're not going to understand each other. If you're willing to try it and you immerse yourself in yoga, but I'm telling you, really immerse yourself. You don't go in, with your phone on, and you have to dress a certain way, and you have to be in the zone, so to speak. If you allow yourself to get into the zone, then you could judge, does yoga have meaning to you or not? Most people that try it do find it that way. Judaism is not any different. The Torah is not any different. Shabas is not any different. I think we would all admit that this past Shabbos had a quality to it that was not usual. It wasn't your typical Shabbos. For some of you, I know for me, it certainly is very special Shabbos. For some, it might have been the most special Shabbos of your life because you were immersed in it, because you created an environment. Created an environment that made it perfect. The Torah is the same way. When Jacob was on his way to Lavan, he was 63 years old when he left his parents. 63 years old. And his mother and his father told him to go to Lavan and find yourself a wife there. So on the way, he passed, so Shem ve'Ever, who were even older than Abraham and Isaac, they had a yeshiva. They had a beis medrash. It was a beis medrash of Shem ve'Ever. So on the way, Yaakov stopped off to learn some Torah, to fortify himself. Now we know from the Chumash, from the Torah, that Yaakov was an ish ohalim. He was a person that dwelt in the tents of Torah. So he was a pretty accomplished Torah scholar when he left. But he wanted that extra support. So he stopped off for 14 years. He said, let me fortify myself. Okay, so 63 became he's 77. And he knew a little bit of what his life was supposed to be like. He knew he was destined to have the 12 tribes. But he stopped off for 14 years. Rashi comments, and Rashi chooses a very, very interesting word. Now, in Hebrew, we would say, to learn, we would say, lilmod. To learn, to teach, hu lomed. He's learning, he's studying. Rashi says a word, he uses a word in Aramaic, hitmin. He immersed himself. The word hatmana, it comes up on Shabbos, whether you're allowed to place a food wrapped in something that gives off heat. Can you totally wrap it? It can be totally encased in something that gives off heat, and that is not permissible even before the Shabbos. We're not going to go into the laws of Shabbos now, but the word hatmana means totally immersed. So how interesting that Rashi chose that word, that he immersed himself. He immersed himself in the Torah. So whether someone learns his entire life, but the experience of spending a period of time in your life that nothing else is going on except the Torah, you immersed yourself in the Torah, is an experience it's something you have to experience in order to appreciate it. For me to convince you and say, look, if you want me to learn 1,000 hours, so I'll break it up, I'm going to continue what I'm doing, and I accept upon myself over the next 5 years to study 1,000 hours. That's great, that's fantastic. I would clap and I would stand up for you and I would kiss you and I would say, unbelievable success. Wow, how can you bring that upon yourself? But it doesn't compare to the experience of being totally immersed in the Torah. That's something that changes you as a person. You're now connected to one source. Your energy is all being, you're deriving all your energy from a Torah source without any distractions. And distractions change everything. If you're in a movie theater, I'm not even sure why people go to movies anymore, but they do. There's so many other ways of watching a movie, but yet people go to a movie theater. Why? Because there's an environment there. It's the soundproofing. And now, if you'd be watching a movie on the subway or in the street, and people would be talking, it wouldn't bother you. You'd watch the movie. Someone's phone goes off in a movie theater. All right, if it goes off one ring, some people are tolerant. Some are not even tolerant of that. Someone's phone would repeatedly be going off. Someone would be talking. You could still hear the movie. Eventually, someone would go with this fellow, pick him up, and throw him out. Why? Because the environment was such, and now he ruined that whole environment. It's ruined. It's like it was a waste of money, a waste of time. It's not what I came here for. Because when you're totally focused, the experience is totally different. So let's try. So Shabbos was that way as we experience this last Shabbos. But let's talk a little bit about the Shabbos. Let's talk about Shabbos. What is Shabbos? What is Shabbos? Simply, there's a misconception that Shabbos is a lot of don'ts. A whole bunch of don'ts. A whole bunch of I'm not allowed to do A, B, C, D, E, and F. So many things that I can't do. Which is not a fair description of Shabbos, even though there are a lot of things you can't do on Shabbos. But why is it? What is the reasoning? What's the fundamental reason why certain actions are not permissible on Shabbos? Why they're prohibited? And if we had to capsulate it and give it over, it's anything that is part of creating. Creativity was forbidden. We can't create things. We can't build things. We can't build material things. We can't build things in this world. If I was to offer any one of you, if someone offered you entered this lottery, and the grand prize of the lottery was any amount of money in the world to build your dream house. Anywhere in the world, absolutely no cap on the expenses. Okay, you won. Okay. Doesn't mean that the next day you have your dream house. Think about it. You would spend quite a bit of time searching the globe and travel expenses, search the globe wherever you want. You search the globe where, what, architects, designers, and your friends, and you'd be busy with it. If I had to guess, probably take it close to 5 years till you actually got what you wanted. And hopefully after you got what you wanted, you're not going to have too many second thoughts and regrets what you should have done. Let's say you have no regrets. Now, you're going to be pretty busy with this house. It's going to be on your mind. You'll be occupied with it, overseeing the designers, the architects, the constructions, making sure everything is just perfect. You finally finished it. You're on your perfect hilltop, your perfect chair, perfect drink in your hand, perfect view, cigar, whatever, scotch, whatever you want. And you're just sitting there. And your friend who's been watching you the last 5 years, he doesn't know it was your money you spent, it wasn't your money. And he sees you just day after day sitting there. He says, what are you doing? He says, what am I doing? So you're not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. All the work the last 5 years was to be here. I am now Now I'm in the zone. I'm enjoying the view. This is what I worked for. Shabbos, what's forbidden on Shabbos is to free you up to focus on what the purpose of Shabbos was and is. It's to free you from your phone. And what a joy that is. What a joy that I don't have the phone. I'm able to actually, when I have a few seconds, I like to take walks. I try, I'm not successful all the time, to leave my phone at home. And I'm asked, aren't you bored? And my standing answer is, no, I'm enjoying the company. Do we ever spend time anymore with ourselves and just let ourselves think? Let our mind wander. We're intelligent people, and we're pretty creative by nature, and we really do think about ourselves if we have the time to think about ourselves. If we don't allow us any time to stop and think about ourselves. So in the next 2 weeks, we're going to read, actually next week, after the Shabbos, is the Torah reading of Balak. So here in Jerusalem, there's a Rabbi Zev Leff, who spoke to us, it was quite a few years ago. And there's a very interesting thing in that whole Torah reading is the Torah has, within the Torah there are breaks. If you look at the Torah scroll itself, there are paragraphs. Paragraphs. It's not line, even though there are no commas, no periods, you don't know where, we know through tradition where the sentences end, but if you look at the Torah, you wouldn't know. But there are paragraphs. The Talmud asks, what's the purpose of the paragraphs? The purpose of the paragraphs is, even when God gave the Torah to Moses, God said one paragraph at a time. What was the purpose? In order to give Moses time to reflect. To reflect on what was just said, to process it, to incorporate it. Okay, got it. To which Rashi says, if even Moses, the greatest teacher, the greatest Talmud scholar, who was being taught by God himself, needed to reflect and process after each paragraph, how much more so do we? So Bilam, who was a prophet, he was not Jewish. His level of prophecy, we are taught, was even greater than that of Moses himself, but he used it incorrectly. And he was an evil person, and he wanted our destruction. If you look in the Torah reading, it's a week from this Shabbos, and if you'll take a Chumash, you'll see that there are no paragraphs. It's like almost one complete run-on sentence. And Rabbi Lev explained that the downfall of Bilam, as great as he was, his potential was beyond. His downfall was he never stopped to reflect. He just kept going in life without ever taking a point in his life, a point of time, when he thought back, am I actually headed in the right direction, or am I headed in the wrong direction? I tell my children life is phases. When we reach an end of a phase, a graduation day is mixed emotions. It's a little bit of a sad day. We look forward to it when we're in school. That's a very happy day. But when the actual day of graduation comes, I know I experience it that way, there's really more sadness than happiness. There's a parting away of friends. There's a routine that even though when you went through it in the present, it wasn't so special to you, when you look back on it, it's actually a quite good experience. The school you went to, your teachers, certainly your friends, and now things are changing. Don't be afraid for a phase to end, and don't be too nervous about the phase that's beginning. But reflect. Reflect. What did I accomplish till now? Where's my next step? You don't have to go too far into the future, but every once in a while, just check. Where am I coming from? Where am I going to? There's a story. There was somebody, he was traveling, and there was a crossroads which went in 3 different directions. And there's a fellow sitting there. Sitting. So a traveler was going along, and he sees this fellow sitting there. You're just sitting there. Is everything okay? are you feeling okay? Feeling fine. What seems to be the problem? I'm supposed to get to a certain city, but the signpost fell down, and I don't know which road to take for me to reach my destination. I don't know which road to take. How do I get to this city? So the fellow says to him, well, don't you know where you came from? Of course I know where I came from. So just take the signpost, point the arrow back where you came from, and then you'll know where to go. That's very true in life. To realize where we came from, to look back, what did I just do? Where was I? And that's going to give you a very big hint as to where you're supposed to go. I'd like to talk a little bit, let's finish a little bit more about Shabbos. Now, what one could say, that maybe I don't have, maybe Shabbos is not for me. Maybe it's not for me. Fine, Shabbos, you get a lot out of Shabbos, I don't. God calls Shabbos a gift. It's a gift. It's a present. What would you say to the following scenario? And the Talmud talks about this. Talmud says, if I had a well in the middle of my field, and I sold you the well. I sold you the well. You needed water for your flock, because that's what you do. You're a shepherd, and your flock needs water, and you need. So you bought the well, and you come the next day, and you want to load up, with water. And I say to you, well, where are you going? So you're going to the well. I don't let you trespass my property to get to the well. Yeah, you own the well, but you got to figure out how to get there. So could I say that? Could I sell him the well and say, well, you didn't get egress. You didn't buy egress. I'm not letting you in my property. So the difference of opinion in the rabbis, whether I could take that position or not. And it's based on when someone sells, does he sell with what's called a good eye or an evil eye? If I sell with a good eye, of course, if I sold him the well, I gave him access to the well. But there are other opinions that say no. However, everyone agrees you need a well. I'm giving the well as a present. It's a present. There, everyone agrees that I can't say the next day, I gave it the well as a present. Doesn't mean you can trespass my field. When you give something as a present, then you're giving with a good heart. And you're giving, and the key words here are, you're giving him access. You don't want to give someone a present in a manner, in a fashion where he can't enjoy the present. I gave it to you for you to enjoy. If you're not going to be able to enjoy it, that's not the intent of the one giving the present. God gave us Shabbos as a present. And he said, I want you to enjoy the Shabbos. And he guarantees it. He guarantees that if you access the Shabbos, if you experience the Shabbos, then you will enjoy it. I like to recommend, I don't know who here is observant on a weekly basis, who maybe is not observant at all of the Shabbos. I'd like to make a suggestion. We will enjoy the last Shabbos. Maybe we didn't enjoy the entirety of the Shabbos. Usually I find that Friday night has a certain magic to it. There's a magic to Friday night, even though the rabbis say the holiest time of Shabbos is the third meal. I guess I'm not holy enough to really feel the additional holiness of the third meal of Shabbos. It could get difficult. But Friday night has a magic to it. Why don't you think, make this commitment. You want to say, let's say once a month. Once a month, I'm going to keep Friday night. Because I enjoyed it. I want Shabbos to be part of my life. But I'm not yet ready to accept Shabbos on a weekly basis. It's a tremendous, wow, you're obligating yourself. And if you accept it and then you don't keep your obligations, that's not healthy. So pick a number. Let's say it's once a month. But if you do that, but also you have to plan ahead. It can't be that I'm going to be holed up in my dormitory room with nothing to do. and my friends are going out, and they're going to the bar, and who knows what else, and I'm stuck in my room by myself. That's not going to work. So together with that level of acceptance that you're willing to obligate yourself to, accept upon yourself as well, but I'm going to make sure I'm in a place that it's going to work. I'm going to get invited out. I'm going to invite some other friends, and I'm going to buy a bottle of wine. We're going to have food, and I'm going to look at the Torah reading, and I'm actually going to try to simulate. But keep in mind that God Himself said, "I'm giving you. That's my present to you." God said, "I have this present in my treasure chest, and it's called Shabbos. It's a very special Shabbos. But just like yoga, just like being in a movie theater, you have to be in the zone. But if you're in the zone, you will experience it and you will enjoy it." Also, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. If a situation comes and we're tested and there's a challenge called an nisayon, and a nisayon, the purpose of a test is really to bring what you're capable of doing, to bring your potential to the reality. We each have within us a tremendous amount of potential. But until we bring that potential into reality, we don't yet own it. It stays potential, and we never access it. So I've had, guys tell me that one guy was very depressed. He was going to keep Friday night, and his friends came by and they said, "Come on, let's go." He said, No, it's Friday night. I'm not going. Come on. It gets to a point when you really can't resist. You're too tempted to go, probably because they're either ridiculing you, making fun of you, and you go along with your friends. And you go to the bar and you have some drinks, but you're feeling this is not right. And there are girls at the bar, and they went wherever they went, and they were telling you, come with us, and you tear yourself away, you go back to the dormitory room, and you're totally depressed. And you're beating yourself up, and this is not for me. I thought I could do it. I thought I could keep the Shabbos. I'd keep it Friday night once a month. I see it didn't happen, forget it. And he called me about this, and I told him, who gave you the right to mark your own papers? You're marking your own test? It was a test. You thought the test was whether you'd go with your friends to the bar or not. So you think you failed. And I'm going to tell you, you're not yet at a level to resist the temptation of going with them. That wasn't the test. The test was that after you left the bar, you're going to separate yourself from them when they went to do what they went to do and you went back to your dormitory room. So you think you failed? I'm telling you, you got 100 on the test. So a question of perspective. Each person's test is in a very, very specific spot. There's a 50-yard line. Every test is on your 50-yard line. You can go either way. The tree is planted right on the 50-yard line. Where are you going to draw from? Which way are you going to go? There are tests, we're not, the things I do in my life, which I wish maybe I wouldn't be doing, but there's a certain level. If I had to say on myself, even though we're being taped now, but we're not allowed to say Lashon Hara. Okay. For me to say, it's forbidden to say Lashon Hara, so I'm accepting on myself the rest of my life, I will never say Lashon Hara ever again. It wouldn't be smart for me to make that promise. For me to make that a goal, to get there eventually 100%. We should have goals. We should have aspirations. We should realize that life is a process, and we have to reach in every area that we're tested. But we're tested on the level we're on. We can't be a pendulum and go from one extreme to another extreme and say, okay, now that I realized, so now I'm going to never say Lashon Hara, and the Shmira Sanayim, I'm going to be careful where my eyes look in the street, and I'm never going to look in the street at something I'm not supposed to look at. That's difficult. I remember once standing in front of Ohr Somayach and talking to some students a bunch of years ago, and a bus pulled up, and 50 female soldiers came off the bus. And as I'm talking to this guy, and all of a sudden, he's totally not looking into my eyes. He's totally looking the other way. And he goes, "I'm sorry." He goes, I asked him, "You sorry for what?" He said, my attention got diverted. I said, "Yes, but you don't have to apologize. I couldn't compete. I mean, what I was saying is not going to be more interesting than what you wanted to look at. But don't kick yourself too hard. We live with ourselves. Be honest with yourself. If your aspirations and your goals are something that you aspire to, and when you meet great people and you see the levels that they actually accomplished, goals that we would like to aspire to, but it's one rung at a time, and there is no other way. When we look at the world and the people of the world, which we're influenced, and the strongest pressure on a person is not school, not parents, not siblings. It's social pressure. It's the people we live amongst. So I want to go back to Bereshit, to Genesis. So Sodom was a very bad place. Where Lot chose to live, Sodom was a very evil place. And because of the merit of Abraham, of Avraham, God sent angels to Sodom to save Lot. So these two angels come to Lot, and they're staying in his house. And the city, the entire city, so I'm just going to read in English. Before they had laid down, the people of the city, the people of Sodom, the evil people, surrounded about the house from young to old, all of the people from one end to the other. The entire population of the city came to Lot's house because he had to, they didn't know they were angels, they were men. And they called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them." Okay, know in a very specific sexual nature. That's what they wanted them for. So what happened? So that was their desire. And Lot starts to plead with them. He says, "Please don't. They came to me, and they're my guests, and please don't bother them." And Lot even offered, I'll bring in my daughters. Take my daughters instead. And no, they weren't satisfied. So Lot tried to convince them not to. The angels brought Lot back into the house. And what did they do to get them away? So the angels, what they did was, he blinded the entire city. He blinded them. And the men who were at the entrance of the house, the entire population, from young to old, they struck with blindness from the small up to the great. Okay, so imagine this for a second. The entire population of a city were bent on getting these two men to get to know them, and they were blinded. Every single person was blinded. You think that should do it, right? That should have ended it right there, right? Forget it. Let's go home, guys. We're blind. No. They were not able to find the entrance. It didn't deter them a drop. They were undeterred. When you're dealing with a population, we're dealing with a society, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious and more apparent that the society, the secular society, I'm not talking, and unfortunately includes some of the Jewish secular society, but the society at large, really in America, in Europe, they're undeterred. They can't be stopped. It's like a frenzy. It's like a fever. It's like almost like they caught this disease. They're so, nothing will deter them. Not logic, not discussions, debates. Don't debate. If blindness won't stop a populace from seeking to do what they set their minds to do, so what the world has set their minds to do to us, now there are Gentiles that get it. There's no question about it. And you know, there are what's called, they're tzaddikim, they're righteous people amongst the nations. There's no question about that. And they deserve even a tremendous amount of credit for realizing really something that's really rather simple. But on the other hand, if you think you're going to convince those that don't see the obvious truth on their own, it's a waste of time. And just one more verse in the same Torah reading of Vayera in Genesis. So we know that Abraham was tested, the final test to Abraham, the final test, and God said to him, please pass this test, because this test will prove to everyone who you are, and it's a test of sacrificing your son. And it took 3 days of travel for Abraham to get to the spot, and that was done on purpose, that it shouldn't be that, he did it, in an instant before he got to think. He had time to think. And the verse says, I'm going to read it in English, Abraham raised his eyes and perceived the place from afar. He saw the place where he had to go to sacrifice. Of course, he ended up not sacrificing the son, we know that. But he saw the place where God commanded him to sacrifice his son. The next verse is interesting. Said Abraham to the young men who were with him, not Isaac, he had 2 other people with him, stay by yourselves here with the donkey. Vani, while I and the lad, meaning Isaac, will go until there, we will prostrate ourselves and we return to you. So while we can see where we're supposed to go from the distance, but as long as we have baggage with us, as long as we have the other nations with us, we'll never get to that place. We can see the place from the distance. We see it. We see Israel, we see Eretz Israel, we see the yeshiva, we see Shabas. We see it from the distance. But to actually get it, to get there, to experience it, we have to let go of some of the baggage that we're traveling with. Abraham himself, if he had kept those 2 others with him, he couldn't have reached the heights that he reached. It's only when we recognize where we need to go, and we have the courage and the fortitude, and everyone here in Ohr Somayach is here to help you. If we recognize where we need to go, and we're willing to let go of some of the baggage, and we think about it, it's baggage that really doesn't have any virtue, really no merit, no credibility, no substantiality, not genuine, not authentic. It's really just extra baggage that we're carrying through life. So to end with a thought, realize in your life what baggage you're carrying that's not necessary. Travel light, recognize where it is you need to go, and God Hashem will be with you, and all the mentors on the trip who love you all, and we're all willing to access ourselves. We don't mind being bothered day or night, and all the teachers here, and all the Rabbeim, and I wish you much success in the rest of your life, and thank you for the most unbelievable week this past week.
Amen. Amen.